In the heart of Glasgow, one of Scotland's leading firms in human rights law has built a reputation fighting on the front line of injustice.
So I'm gonna lose everything.
Now they've set their sights on an even bigger mission, to hold the system to account.
I hope that you'd give up.
I haven't, and I won't.
Scrutinising institutions.
Laws can't be changed overnight.
And changing the game.
I'd like to take a break.
Of course, yeah.
If that's okay.
There is a pecking order that's enforced through intimidation, bullying and violence.
Scotland's legal system is under pressure like never before.
It's almost like a Line of Duty episode.
The firm is at the centre of some of the biggest issues facing the nation.
We need justice.
Our laws are what define us, and where the battle lines are drawn will impact us all.
The family do not want tea and sympathy. They demand a public inquiry.
But it's time now that the law has to change.
Got a lot of work to do. Alright. Hey.
Alright.
How are you?
Not bad, you? How's your holiday?
Looks good.
Good.
Good. You obviously enjoyed the football, eh? Were you dealing with the Emma Caldwell stuff? Can you pull that together again?
Lawyer Amr Anwar is preparing a schedule for one of the most high-profile legal battles in Scottish history. A case that involves taking on the Scottish Police Service.
The police do a valuable job in our society, the guardians of law and order. You have a responsibility to ensure that you act within the law. All right, so what I'll do is I'll get you and Robbie in for a meeting just to sort out stuff. And if not, then you should be held accountable. There should be a remedy for abuse of power. I think I need to put in a letter to the First Minister to say, this is the timetable. The families wish to meet with the First Minister. Hello. Hi, Margaret. How are you? Yeah, no, I just wanted to check up because I was wanting to come up and see you. If that's okay. Going to see Margaret Caldwell, a mother who was left shattered by the murder of her daughter.
27-year-old Emma Caldwell died in 2005.
Well, Emma was murdered, raped, her body dumped out of Glasgow in a wood.
After more than 10 years, frustrated that the police had failed to catch Emma's killer, Margaret approached Amr.
2016, Margaret came through my door and said she wanted me to represent her family. My secretary at the time says, oh, there's a Margaret in to see, and I said, well, she doesn't have an appointment. He says, oh, well, she's wanted to see, and so who is it? What's it around? She says, it's Margaret Caldwell. I went, it didn't ring at that time, Margaret Caldwell. She says, it's the mother of Emma Caldwell.
It took almost another decade, but in 2024, an original suspect, Ian Packer, was found guilty of her rape and murder.
For some 20-odd years, he was able to prey on women. How shameful that is, our criminal justice system that allowed it to do that. Too much has gone wrong over 20 years.
Now Amr and the family are determined to find out why it took so long to solve the crime.
Hello there, good afternoon. The mother of Emma Caldwell is to press the First Minister, Hamza Yousaf, for a public inquiry into the police handling of her daughter's murder. It follows the conviction of Ian Packer for murdering Emma almost 20 years ago. Former detectives who were involved in the earliest stages of the case said Packer's violent and abusive behaviour was known from the very start of their investigation.
Hi, Margaret.
Come on. Come on, Teddy. Come on, Teddy. Teddy.
He wants to stay with me.
I know. Right, Teddy, go. Come on, Teddy.
Amar will need to gain support from the Scottish Government to achieve a public inquiry, so he's briefing Margaret for a crucial meeting with the First Minister.
This case is riddled with huge problems.
Yeah.
The only people that should really count in this whole thing is you and the women who suffered at the hands of Ian Packer.
Yes.
Their voices should be heard.
They should. I mean, I've not met with the new First Minister.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think there should be no hiding room for anybody in relation to this.
No.
It's not a case of, there is no compromise on this. We cannot afford to compromise. So on that day, we'll arrange then to get you picked up to go through.
Yeah.
But I think probably for the day, once we've got the time sorted out, we'll arrange a press conference probably beforehand going in, and then we'll have the meeting, and then when we come out, we'll have another press conference. But I think it's just piling the pressure on there. Ultimately, the government can make that decision to hold these people to account. So
Yeah.
I can't see any other option that we've got.
Remember all the police that were in the first investigation? I mean, we felt the things weren't going right there anyway. There was things going wrong.
Yeah.
So will this come to light
I think...
in an inquiry? I'm a bit worried that they're going to just let that slide.
No, they can't, because that will be central to the public inquiry. Starting from the bottom, working their way to the top, all those police officers will have to provide an account. Why did they do it? Who ordered them? So I think they all will need to answer. Ultimately, if police officers who may no longer be police officers broke the law, then they should pay the price. The most powerful element I have on my side is Margaret Caldwell, and she's a force to be reckoned with. I've not known any mother to give up.
No, mothers
just
do
keep
not.
fighting. They just
Mothers
keep
do
fighting.
not give up.
Just keep going, and that's what they have to contend with. Bye, Teddy.
Hey, Ted.
Take
Love
care.
you.
I'll be in touch. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I think the police service hoped that Margaret would give up. Her husband died. He never got to see justice. They hoped that Margaret would eventually give up. But as Margaret knows, she says she's in for the long haul.
As the nation's media gather outside Bute House, elsewhere in Edinburgh, Amar is giving a last-minute pep talk to the Caldwell family.
So, when we get into the meeting today, don't hold back. Don't hold back. I mean, he's First Minister for Scotland. Do not hold back.
No.
Get stuck in. You've had nearly 19 years of waiting for this. Had enough of excuses. Sorry doesn't count anymore.
No,
It just doesn't.
no. It's been difficult. It's been really difficult since the verdict. We've all felt it. We've all felt.
I mean, the focus now shifts. It shifts to the police. It can only be a public inquiry, nothing less, nothing less. And the only way the Crown will ever get everything that the police have done wrong is if there's a public inquiry.
Yeah.
At the moment, they've got whatever they volunteer.
It has to be the public inquiry. Yeah.
This is about women who've been raped and killed. We're never going to get to the truth of the matter otherwise. Anything less will be a betrayal of Emma. In terms of sexual violence, it's probably the most important public inquiry that will ever take place in the United Kingdom because it goes to the heart of policing.
I mean, it was national news this morning.
The UK press are all interested, the UK media, I mean, they're all going to be there today.
Amar will need to utilise the media coverage to persuade ministers, as only they have the power to grant a public inquiry. If established, the inquiry will be completely independent of the government to maintain impartiality and to ensure the public have confidence in the process.
Almost 20 years ago, a young woman called Emma Caldwell was murdered in South Lanarkshire. But a series of police blunders meant her killer was only convicted last month. Well, about now, Emma's mother is meeting the First Minister of Scotland to call for a public inquiry into that botched investigation. It took 19 years to bring Ian Packer to justice, leaving him free to attack other women.
Many women came forward and told the police about Ian Packer. No explanation of why they didn't go after Ian Packer. There will have to be an inquiry. It has to happen. It's not just Emma Caldwell's family who want answers, but all those women whose lives were wrecked.
If the Caldwell family have any hopes of being granted a public inquiry,
Just here on the right here, just at the corner, just so that we don't see the press just now.
they need the First Minister's support.
I'm very grateful to all of you for coming. I can tell you're a very close knit.
We are a very close family.
Yeah, we're not a large family, we're
No.
a small family, so I think with that brings the closeness, I think.
Just Emma had a voice, we have a voice, and these other women maybe perhaps have no one. And there might be many more because it's been many, many years assaulting women.
The Caldwell family arrived here around 10 minutes or so ago. It's an opportunity for Margaret Caldwell to ask the First Minister, Humza Yousaf, and Scotland's Justice Secretary to ask them directly to hold that public inquiry that she has been calling for from the moment that Ian Packer was convicted of murdering Emma Caldwell and of sexually and physically assaulting 21 other women. Now, after that verdict, Police Scotland apologised for failings in the original inquiry, and one of the questions that the Caldwells want a public inquiry to answer is why senior officers chose to disregard evidence that had been gathered against Ian Packer as early as 2007.
The First Minister promised that he will give primary consideration to the family's demands for a statutory public inquiry.
It was a very positive chat. The proof is in the pudding. As we said, we'll hold your feet to the fire.
We know that evidence exists that the abduction, rape and murder of Emma Caldwell and the subsequent rapes of women might have been prevented or at least disrupted had allegations against Packer been properly investigated. Margaret and her family are deeply grateful to the First Minister and Justice Secretary and hope there will finally be a legacy of Emma Caldwell. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Questions? No. Right. Thank you.
Today's meeting marks the start of their battle. This week they'll also meet with the Chief Constable of Police Scotland and the Lord Advocate to gather information to assist the pursuit of an inquiry. Back in the firm's offices, Denise O'Can is tackling a complex fight of her own. She heads up the newly formed Immigration and Asylum Department.
It allows me to give a voice to people that don't have a voice in a very challenging time in their lives.
Like Amar, Denise is not afraid of a challenge.
Okay, so how are you? Are you okay?
I was feeling bad this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you worried about this?
Dennis, I try to sleep, but the sleep doesn't come. Thinking and I can't.
Gideon has arrived at the office to hear the outcome of his recent Home Office application for asylum status. He travelled to the UK legally after securing a visa from an agency in Ghana.
Gideon first came to the UK in 2012. He was working as a fisherman aboard a vessel. He was working in horrendous conditions, almost every hour of the day without breaks, barely being fed.
You feel very bad and very, very sad the way you were treated and all that. It's something that you can never forget.
Gideon was a potential witness for a prosecution against the company he worked for and was allowed to legally remain in the country until a trial date to give evidence.
You were given a grant of leave because you were needed to assist the police with their investigation. Okay.
A criminal trial was never brought against the company who employed Gideon, and he had his rights to remain in the UK revoked. With Denise's help, Gideon applied for asylum status, and Denise has received the decision.
The Home Office decided to refuse your recent application. Gideon's case is unique. You have to show that there are exceptional and compelling circumstances. We are going to take a statement from you, just so that the Home Office can see your whole story, really.
The statement will be part of a new submission, taking into account what Gideon has been through and factoring in his human rights.
The boat was called Nazi. No water to drink. They don't care. You don't even get rest.
So they were expecting you to take no breaks at all?
No. And you know how much we were paid a day? £1.16. £1.16 per day. Total slavery, to be honest.
He said they would stop his pay and he would return to Ghana, and he'd obviously spent a lot of money to get to the UK in the first place, so there was a lot of shame if he was to return to Ghana without any money and without having achieved anything.
Crew members claim they were at risk of injury at sea, and Gideon recalls one incident where he thought he came close to death.
The bar hit my chest, then just fed up. I was gone.
You remember the bar falling on your chest and then you were just unconscious?
Yeah, I was gone completely. The skipper who caused it never even came to ask me how I was feeling. What kind of question is that? You see, you don't know anybody. Who do you tell? Even when the boat comes to the harbor, they don't even allow you to go out. Just maybe in case you meet somebody.
I can see the pain in Gideon's eyes when he's reliving his experience. Okay. He was finding it very, very hard to provide the statement.
Going back home, for me, it's very, very difficult, Dennis. It's very, very difficult.
Gideon's statement is just one of the pieces of documentation Denise will be gathering.
Photographs, for example, to show how well he's integrated into society. You can seek a GP report. You can get letters of support from charities that work with him.
I feel very bad, like, it's like you are moving from one place to another. I mean, depending on people at my age. But I become like useless.
I can't even imagine that.
Gideon now faces an agonising wait while his application is considered, one that could take as long as 2 years.
I mean, I'm amazed by his resilience, and I just feel really lucky to be in a position to be able to help people like Gideon.
That's my story, madam.
Thank you, Gideon.
Back in Edinburgh, having secured the support of the First Minister, Amar and the Caldwell family are preparing to meet the Lord Advocate, Dorothy Bain, in the hope she can shed light on some of their biggest questions.
Right, so this morning, I think, in terms of a plan, we meet with the Lord Advocate and then it's straight into business. We want chapter reversals and what happened, what went wrong.
The Lord Advocate is the head of criminal prosecutions in Scotland, so her support will be invaluable.
You look back at him as murder, that's our first and foremost thing. But then, when you hear the evidence of all the other things that he's done over the years, it actually adds to that agony.
But I think over the last few weeks, you have seen how badly it's affected us.
Yeah. You guys have had 19 years of sleepless nights.
19 years.
You know, 19 years of sleepless nights, of pain, of anguish, of trauma. But now it's their turn. The family, they want answers. It doesn't just involve police officers, it involves senior officers, it involves chief constables, it involves people at the legal level going from, you know, Lord Advocates down to Crown agents, down to Crown Counsel, Procurator Fiscals, as in, what did you do? Why? And he thought he had a lifelong immunity.
Yeah, he did.
You know,
He
that's-
stood
it was a
up there
gift to
in
him.
court and said, I am not guilty.
I've sat with Margaret over the years and we've sat and cried together, held her hand, held her tight. There's been times, moments where she's wanted to give up and walk away, and I said, look, Margaret, leave it to me. We'll keep going. You could see and you could feel the absolute, utter sadness of having lost Emma, of feeling that sense of guilt. Could she have done anything to save her? Could she have done more? Emma had a lovely family who cared for her, who loved her. Margaret, when she went missing, she knew straight away there was something wrong. She could feel it, a mother's instinct.
She wouldn't go a day without phoning me, and we just lived for her coming home. Just lived for her coming home. Wanted her home.
In the months after their daughter was murdered, Emma Caldwell's parents visited the remote woods where her body was found.
This is difficult to comprehend.
Oh, Emma.
I love you, Emma.
How could anyone do this?
She said that it took her breath away because it almost felt like she'd stopped breathing. And it broke her heart.
Emma's father, William, passed away in 2011, and at this point the case had gone quiet. But 5 years later, when a Scottish newspaper reignited the unsolved case, labelling Ian Packer as the forgotten suspect, Amber began representing the Caldwell family. This was not Amber's first involvement with Emma's case.
I became involved in the case actually before I started representing Margaret. I received a phone call from Mr. Onku. He was a Turkish national, and he told me, he says, look, I'm accused of murder.
During their investigation, police discovered that the last voice call that Emma received was from Mr. Onku. Around the time of her death, Mr. Onku had travelled to Turkey, sparking suspicion and leading police to focus on this line of inquiry.
He said that he wished to come back, he wanted to see justice. He says, well, I want to prove that I'm innocent. And I said, you do realise that if you come back, you will be met at Glasgow airport by police officers. He says, I don't care. I want to prove I'm innocent. And I went, okay, so be it. At that point, I thought, this man is innocent because he is willing to come back from a country that he doesn't need to.
Police pinpointed one of Emma's last known locations via her mobile phone signal as a community centre cafe frequented by Mr. Onku and 3 other Turkish men who also fell under police suspicion.
Specially trained forensics officers examine a Turkish community centre on Glasgow's Bridge Street, raided by police this morning.
A police surveillance operation began and recorded a conversation in Turkish, supposedly between the men discussing their involvement in Emma's murder.
Dramatic developments in the hunt for the killer of Emma Caldwell. Tonight, police have arrested 4 men in connection with her death.
Late this afternoon, the men, thought to be of Turkish origin, were charged with Emma Caldwell's murder.
One of the men arrested was Amar's client, Mr. Onku.
Earlier today, I spoke to the defence lawyer for one of the accused.
He maintains his innocence. The difficulty is that proceedings are still live, inquiries are still continuing, so it would be inappropriate to comment any further.
In the investigation that followed, the surveillance translations were re-examined and found not to be accurate.
The case pretty much rested upon surveillance. We became aware as defence lawyers, as soon as the professional translation was done, that the surveillance wasn't worth anything and charges were dropped.
See, they were investigating the murder of Emma Caldwell.
The murder of Emma Caldwell. It's been well publicised.
One team of detectives have decided It's Ian Packer.
Before I started on the inquiry had been running for several weeks before I started on it, and they were already looking at the Turkish men. I've seen some of what they called evidence against the Turkish men, and none of it was evidence. It all seemed put together, trying to make it fit, when you didn't have to do that with the evidence against Ian Packer. I got Ian Packer in for interview on my second day being on that inquiry, and I told someone on that day, it's him. No, it's him. It's absolutely him. Lots of pats in the back. That's brilliant, Stuart. And then it completely changed, and it was one of those room spin moments.
Nearly 2 decades later, Stuart's hunch was proved right.
Tonight on Reporting Scotland, Ian Packer is found guilty of murdering Emma Caldwell, along with physical and sexual violence against 21 other women.
Many will ask Margaret how she feels following the verdict. She says she feels no joy, no elation, no closure. The loss of Emma shattered a mother's soul, but finally the presence of justice allows Margaret to breathe again. No grieving mother should ever be forced to set up a campaign to get justice, let alone a campaign that lasts nearly 19 years.
In the days following the sentencing of Emma's killer, Police Scotland issued an apology.
It is clear that further investigations should have been carried out into Emma's murder following the initial inquiry in 2005. The lack of investigation until 2015 caused unnecessary distress to her family and all of those women who came forward to report sexual violence.
For Amar and the family, an apology isn't enough.
If we get a public inquiry, it's Emma's public inquiry.
That's right, yeah.
So it's her name that will go down.
That's right, yeah.
Everybody said to me, you're not getting a public inquiry.
They did.
The press were like that to me. Oh, it's not going to happen. I mean, the news reports you're looking at, it's unlikely, the cost of it, you know, we already have so many public inquiries. Well, how are they going to accept it? They said, well, we won't accept anything less.
Aim for the moon,
You know,
she said.
I aim for the moon.
Aim for the moon. I'll keep that as a mantra, you know.
Aye.
It's time for the Caldwell family's private meeting with the Lord Advocate.
Family want answers as to why, when everyone said it was Ian Packer, why they were told to shut down that line of investigation. So the family want answers to that today. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This morning, when they met the head of Scotland's prosecution service, what they learned was explosive. Inside the Crown Office, the Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain explained her previous involvement in the case. In 2008, as a senior lawyer working for the Crown, she decided charges against 4 Turkish men who'd been accused of Emma's murder should be dropped. She instructed Strathclyde Police to launch a new investigation with new officers. She wanted detectives involved in the previous inquiry referred to professional standards.
The Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain, she told us that when she was a senior lawyer at Crown Office and she was given the case for the prosecution against the Turks, she said, there is no case. We'll raise a case against the prime suspect being Ian Packer and consider an investigation of those police officers who should be removed from the case. She left a few months later. She found out that the case, of course, was never raised against Ian Packer. There was no investigation against those police officers.
Today, the Lord Advocate confirmed that had the Solicitor General and her instruction been followed through by Strathclyde Police on the available evidence in 2008, the Lord Advocate and the team believe there was a sufficiency for prosecuting Ian Packer for murder. The Lord Advocate apologised today and said Crown Office should have done more and failed to do so after 2008. There was sufficient evidence to prosecute Ian Packer in 2008. Nothing happened.
So what happened? Dorothy Bain told them she didn't know.
Today is not about Packer. He is now irrelevant. It's about Emma and the many women whose names are not known. They were important to their loved ones and friends, and they should have been important to the police, but instead they were betrayed. Any police officer, past or present, found to have engaged in criminality must face the prospect of imprisonment and nothing less. Thank you.
Now the family will need to wait for a decision. But Amar remains unfazed by taking on the police, having done so before at the very start of his career, when he was faced with one of Scotland's most notorious legal battles.
Jurors are being asked to decide on the guilt or innocence of Thomas Campbell, aged 31, and Joseph Steele, aged 22, who are accused of murdering 6 members of the Doyle family by setting fire to the home at Bankend Street in Rochesy last April.
The two men deny any involvement in the blaze, which was the climax to a violent struggle between rival factions.
In a turf war said to be connected with the selling of drugs on ice cream routes around Glasgow.
In 1984, the Doyle family were murdered, 6 members of their family, in an arson attack in the East End of Glasgow. The scenes, when you look back, are horrific. The terror that our family must have felt. And of course, there was a real drive for justice.
We don't know what the actual cause of this grudge or this fire is. But then you must explore all avenues.
Police carried out an investigation and they were like, oh, we've got 2 men, Joseph Steele and Tommy Campbell. And they extracted confessions from them and they were sent to prison for life.
Thomas Campbell, or TC as he was known, winced as the jury foreman announced the unanimous verdict, guilty of murder.
When I was studying law, it became notorious. Tommy would be, speaking from Barlini.
Scottish Reporters has obtained a videotape on which, for the first time on television, Campbell speaks openly about his conviction.
Myself and Joseph Steele were wrongfully convicted for murder. We are innocent.
Tommy, he was a petty criminal, but he didn't kill 6 members of the Doyle family.
Tommy and Joseph began a 20-year fight protesting against their conviction.
Since beginning his life sentence, Steele has escaped from prison 3 times, on one occasion supergluing himself to the gates of Buckingham Palace. His stunt designed to focus public attention on his protestations of innocence.
In the years that followed, Tommy and Joseph had 2 appeals rejected.
Released for an appeal?
Refused.
Convicted killers have plea for new evidence to be heard rejected.
Released for an appeal?
Refused.
And then put back in again.
It was after their second appeal rejection in 2001 that Amar became involved in the case.
I think I was just finishing off my traineeship. I went into my boss's room. Tommy wants you. Why me? He says he wants somebody that isn't scared, that will stand up and fight back. We started building a team, and again, people thought, oh, you'll never win it. There was 3 main pieces of evidence that showed that they were framed. A map where it was circled the Doyle family home.
There never was a map found in my briefcase, but there was a map produced in court.
And Tommy, of course, knew that area like the back of his hand.
I don't need a map to get me around the corner.
The police go along and, oh, look, there it is. We've got a map and it's circled. There was a witness who falsely claimed he'd heard Campbell and Steele discussing in a pub what they were going to do.
William Love says now that everything he told the police was a complete lie.
The police told me what to say, and now I just want to tell the truth.
And he said he'd committed perjury and that he'd lied, that he was threatened by the police. But the appeal court said that doesn't matter, we've got enough evidence because we've got the confessions. So of course we went after the confession evidence. Tommy supposedly having said 24 words.
I only wanted the Van Windays shot up. The fire at Fat Boys was only meant to be a frightener, which went too far.
The police verbal evidence that I'm alleged to have uttered, the fire at Fat Boys was only meant to be a frightener which went too far. I never said that. I just never said it. It's as simple as that.
These 4 or 5 police officers came in and it was like, oh, this was written after the event, they remembered it.
Their recollection of his words matched exactly, but they denied comparing notes before writing them down. Today, the appeal court heard from an expert on memory. Professor Brian Clifford thought the chances of the officers remembering exactly the same words without comparing notes was very low.
The idea that 4 police officers could later on write the same statement where those 24 words was identical was simply wrong. The appeal was won, it was successful.
Today, Joseph Steele and TC Campbell finally cleared their names and won their freedom.
And I remember a huge cheer went up and I walked out I was still a young lawyer.
The term to use to describe this case will be a miscarriage of justice, but it was more than that. At the heart of this case was allegations of police corruption.
And I called at that time for a public inquiry.
We demand a full independent inquiry into Strathclyde Police, into the allegations of corruption.
That demand for a public inquiry was never granted.
The Ice Cream Wars case drove home once again about the lack of justice, a lack of accountability, and showed me once again how it is a David and Goliath.
The Chief Constable should reopen the murder investigation and find the killers of the Doyle family and bring them to justice. That is the very least that can be expected.
Strathclyde Police refused to do anything about it. As far as they're concerned, the case was closed. 6 people died, and that family still has never got justice. It's about bringing about change. People say, so long ago, what's the point? This is about going into the heart of policing and the justice system in this country and what they do.
Right, thank you.
It's the day the Caldwell family have been waiting for. They're heading to Holyrood to find out the Scottish Government's decision on a public inquiry.
In terms of what's the best possible outcome today is for the First Minister, well, it won't be the First Minister, it'll be the Justice Secretary, to announce that they will set up a full statutory public inquiry, which is independent, and that they will consider a judge from outside Scotland to chair the inquiry.
Well, that would be the most important thing.
We wouldn't compromise on the public inquiry. No. It had to be a public inquiry because it has powers, as the sanctions of using the threat of jail or civil sanctions and fines. It's the most robust way. It takes time, but it means that documents have to be handed over with the threat of sanctions. Institutions can't refuse it. Individuals have to turn up. They can be compelled to attend and to give evidence. Whereas if it was not in a statutory public inquiry, it just means, well, you come along and speak, and they go, I'm not doing it, or I'm not handing over documents. Just trust me. Because trust is gone, trust is shattered, so we're not trusting those institutions. It's a case of, 1, we want a public inquiry. 2, Margaret says she doesn't care how long it takes. It has to happen. It needs to be statutory because then you can compel witness, you can compel the disclosure of documents, you can force the police to hand it over, you can force the Crown to hand it over, and if they fail to hand it over, then there's criminal consequences. People can face imprisonment, they can face fines. So that's the powerful tool and weapon. 22 women, 1 woman dead. Of course we need a public inquiry.
And you know, Emma, that was a background fear of mine, that we wouldn't get to this stage if we were getting an opportunity to have an inquiry. Because locking him up very quickly became secondary in my mind, you know, because I said to Margaret for a long time, every time I spoke to Margaret, I says, locking him up still doesn't give us the answers that we're looking for. It gets him put away, gets him locked up for the crime that he committed, but it doesn't get us the answers from where the police made a mistake.
What happened was horrific. It was wrong. It's taken, what, nearly 19 years to get the killer behind bars, but it's now on to the next stage, so it's anticipation.
The purpose of a public inquiry is to investigate matters of a public concern and ensure lessons are learned.
I want closure for Margaret. A family want closure for Margaret. Want her to be able to get on with her life, not to have to carry this burden and keep fighting and keep fighting. So it's now. You can make moves. The government can actually act.
The next item of business is an urgent statement by Angela Constance on Emma Caldwell case.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The courage and conviction of the Caldwell family and of Emma's mum, Margaret, is something that will have left a lasting impression on all those who have had the privilege of engaging with the family. Mrs Caldwell has lived through what no one should ever live through. We are so deeply sorry for your and your family's loss and for your pain and your grief that you have all had to endure, and for the 2 decades of fighting a fight that you and William, before he passed, and your family should never have had to go through.
Apologies are important. So when somebody senior, a Chief Constable, a Lord Advocate, a First Minister stands up and apologises, That is important. But just an apology is just words. What the families want to see is action. And action means a legacy for their loved one, that battle they fought was worth it.
But I, this government, and I very much believe this Parliament, want to do everything that we can. And so for you, Margaret, for William, for your family, and for women and girls across this country, but most of all for Emma, I am pleased to tell Parliament today that there will be a public inquiry.
You've done it. You've done it. Emma will be so proud of you. I remember saying that to her, so Emma would be so proud of you. I was holding her arm, turned around, and she smiled at me and smiled down. Want to cry? You want a chair? For all those people who said, you'll never do this. Not possible. People saying, oh, there'll never be a public inquiry. We did it.
Today is an important moment for women in Scotland. The Caldwell family are grateful to the First Minister and the Justice Secretary ordering a statutory public inquiry. This morning, it is important to state that the family paid tribute to the Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain and her prosecution team, who have been unwavering in their commitment to justice. Without her leadership, the work of Crown Office and the present murder team for the police, justice would have been buried forever. I want to pay tribute to Margaret Caldwell. Had it not been for her perseverance and her tenacity, then this case of Emma Caldwell would have been buried forever. Today is an opportunity for real change. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have we reached the moon yet?
I think you've gone past the moon now. It's actually an honour being able to work with those families. It's a privilege, but we also learn so much from them because they were always placed at the heart of our cases. We don't do our cases without their voices being central.
Bye.
The opportunity to make change, strategic change, to have an impact on people's lives, to save lives, is an important part of our job.
In the heart of Glasgow, one of Scotland's leading firms in human rights law has built a reputation fighting on the front line of injustice.
So I'm going to lose everything.
Now they've set their sights on an even bigger mission, to hold the system to account.
They hope that you'd give up.
I haven't, and I won't.
Scrutinising institutions.
Laws can't be changed overnight.
And changing the game.
I'd like to take a break.
Of course, yeah.
If that's okay.
There is a pecking order that's enforced through intimidation, bullying and violence.
Scotland's legal system is under pressure like never before.
It's almost like a Line of Duty episode.
The firm is at the centre of some of the biggest issues facing the nation.
We need justice.
Our laws are what define us, and where the battle lines are drawn will impact us all.
The family do not want tea and sympathy. They demand a public inquiry.
But it's time now that the law has to change.
Got a lot of work to do. The team of people that we've got working for us is about training campaigners, legal fighters. We've tried to develop a juggernaut to actually go, we're changing the law.
Today, Amr is meeting with the Allen family.
Hiya. Hey, I won't give you a hug at the dog.
He's working with them to change a law that impacts one of our largest public institutions.
The Scottish Prison Service is comfortable. They're untouchable. We have 28 families who have suffered deaths in prison, died in horrific circumstances.
The deaths this year, it's horrendous.
Scottish prisons had one of the highest mortality rates in Europe last year, with suicide accounting for 27% of all deaths, a record high.
Every family that comes to us, the main thing they say is, we don't want what's happened to our loved one to happen to any other family.
The Allens' lives have been shattered by the suicide of their daughter while in prison. Amber wants to change the law so it would be possible for the prison service to be held accountable for avoidable deaths that occur on their property.
That's our cherry blossom tree, and the one behind it is Scotch tree. But the weirdest thing happened to that tree after Katie died, didn't it, Stuart? Started growing up the way.
Scotch tree was
always
getting taller, and it was as if she was saying, I'm not having that.
It was just, because Katie was quite small, wasn't she? She was 5'6".
Yeah, about that, yeah.
She was just a fun girl. She was just a kind is the word we always use when we're talking about Katie. She was a high achiever. She'd done really well at school. She was in university. She had a part-time job, a good friend, a good sister, a good daughter. She was just a lovely young woman. Ali, do you want your dinner?
Well, we'll get your dinner.
Come on. We were sitting in our kitchen. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and the police came to the door and were looking for Katie. And we asked why, and they said her vehicle had been involved in an accident, and we presumed Katie had been injured. You know, that was our first thought. We gave the police the address to her flat. Stuart drove down to find Katie being handcuffed by the police. I mean, I have to say at this point, we were furious at Katie. We were so angry at Katie. We didn't really know all the facts, but we knew a young man had been injured.
Katie was sentenced to 16 months in prison for causing serious injury by dangerous driving and drink driving.
Katie did not need rehabilitated. The parents of the young man that had been injured wrote to the sheriff asking for a non-custodial sentence. There was no reason to send Katie to prison. She definitely needed to be punished. She had broken the law. So a non-custodial sentence would have been punishment enough. Katie turned round in the dock and said, "Help me, Mum." And she got handcuffed and taken away.
Katie was incarcerated in HMP Pullman Young Offenders Institute.
There are problems with both violence and bullying in prisons. The most volatile population in prison is the younger population. There is a pecking order in prison. That's what they will refer to it as, and that's enforced through intimidation, bullying and violence.
Katie had never witnessed violence in her life. You know, she didn't come from a household that had violence in it. So to see physical violence in front of you was traumatic beyond belief for her because it wasn't normal. So she was petrified.
If you're regarded as vulnerable, that makes you a potential target for things like bullying and intimidation.
4 weeks before she was due to be released, Katie died by suicide.
When the police came to the door and said that Katie was dead, my first words were, "She can't be, she's in Pullman." Because I thought, she's in the care of the state, was what I was saying, you know. She can't possibly be dead, you know, because little did I know at the time, lots of people that went to prison died.
Following her death, an independent investigation by the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service found sufficient evidence of health and safety breaches by the Scottish Prison Service. But they were unable to proceed with a prosecution due to the long-standing law of Crown immunity.
The Scottish Prison Service has this immunity from prosecution. It gives them a lack of accountability, a lack of transparency, a sheer arrogance that they can do whatever they want.
Crown immunity is an ancient concept. It comes from the idea that the sovereign can't prosecute themselves. Really, in modern day, it seems ridiculous.
Over recent decades, large parts of public services have stopped being covered by Crown immunity, so most famously the NHS.
National health hospitals are to lose their Crown immunity.
Police, defence, hospitals, they can be held to account.
The armed forces are to be given the right to claim compensation if they are injured in peacetime. The Crown's immunity will be removed.
There's only one institution has immunity from prosecution. That's the prison service. We want to change the law UK-wide. We will abolish the Crown immunity, and it will mean that prisons right across the United Kingdom will be held to account. We want the government in the UK to change the law.
I mean, justice, we've said this, justice is Crown immunity being lifted, you know, for us. So we'll, as long as there's breath in our body, we'll keep campaigning for that.
The surge in all deaths in Scottish prisons and the lack of criminal accountability for any failings has driven Amar to try and change the laws around Crown immunity. He is now taking his fight to Westminster.
The case list is sadly growing. I mean, every single one, you see that. Look at the age.
24,
29, 21. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. It goes on. When you actually have the list in front of you with the ages, it can't be right in a civilised society.
People can't keep dying and nobody's held to account.
Yeah.
It has to change across the board, UK-wide. I mean, it's a huge ask, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yep. We need an MP to get the ball rolling, to motivate other MPs. This can't just be about, you know, one political party.
So I spoke to Blair and we're to be at Parliament for 2:30 tomorrow.
Okey-doke.
We're going to see a Labour MP, Blair McDougall. I would hope he is open to the suggestion of building a cross-section of MPs from all parties, which I think he will, because it is an issue that is driven by your conscience about doing the right thing. I've said to him that we've had significant support from the Conservatives, from the Liberal Democrats, from the SNP, with the idea being then we'll get cross-party support to get the ear of the Justice Minister and primarily to get to Keir Starmer.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So that's tomorrow, Amar. But for tonight, what are we having for dinner?
People over decades said, oh, it's never going to happen. People say to me now, never going to get change in the law. Just because it's never happened doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. I'm not naive enough to think this is going to be an easy option, but it's something that we push for because that is the end game. I think we should get somebody in the office, one of the trainees, to get a map of the UK. And families that we've got whose loved ones died in prison, we should basically pinpoint which area they are in terms of which political constituency. And it would help Blair to then get a wide variety of allies.
Laws can't be changed overnight, but we are incredibly motivated. You've got to keep pushing for it.
No matter how many times you come to London, you still always feel like a tourist. Thanks, Blair, for meeting with us. We've got in the region of around about 30 cases of families whose loved ones have died in prison custody.
Securing a voice in Parliament would be a crucial step in their fight to change the law.
This is something we've talked about for a number of years, Crown immunity.
Yeah.
The sense of arrogance that oozes from some of those within the Scottish Prison Service. The number of occasions we've met with them, with families, loved ones have died in horrific circumstances. Unless they feel they can be prosecuted, nothing is ever going to change.
Unless there's an institutional risk, there's not going to be an institutional change. And feels like this is a moment to be taking on issues like this. A theme running through a lot of what the new government is doing is about proper accountability within the public realm. I think on the other side of the scale, we also have a prison service which is in deep, deep crisis at the moment. And I think one of the things we have to manage in this conversation is that sense of, is this piling something else onto a service?
This is the game plan as far as we see it. We wanted one MP in particular, i.e. to lead the charge on this. So you tell us what next.
Well, I think what you're suggesting is exactly the right approach in terms of building a coalition, showing to ministers there are voices in this place who want to see this happen.
We need to keep up the momentum, because in terms of parliamentary time, there's always going to be the next big thing that will push the lifting of Crown immunity off the agenda. So we can't let that happen.
We'll not run out of ways to raise this, that's for sure.
Got a lot of work to do.
Good. It's good.
Should Blair succeed in raising this in Parliament, it could be critical in Amer's fight to change the law on crime immunity in prisons.
It's an uphill task, but that's the first stepping stone for a meeting with the UK Justice Minister and ultimately a meeting with the Prime Minister, who after all used to be the Director of Public Prosecutions. Naz, do me a favour, can you ask Rebecca just to find me out the details of the IOPC Director for Manchester? Well, her name is Catherine something. The drive for justice comes from childhood. Growing up with a father who was extremely dominant and was abusive, not just to me, but to my mother, and never being able to speak up. You were told to keep your mouth shut. And that just always stayed with me, that I want to fight back, you want to speak up, this is wrong. But in terms of the campaigning, it's when I was studying engineering at Glasgow University.
It's the black people who are being felled because of the colour of their skin.
My flatmates were dentists. They worked extremely hard. They were predominantly from an Asian background. And I watched how they went from the first 3 years doing extremely well. And then when they got to clinical, all of a sudden it dropped.
The evidence we presented several months ago to the principal was based on statistical analysis of results that have been going on in third year, fourth year, fifth year exam results.
It was an open secret that certain individuals, lecturers, were racist towards black and Asian students, and you didn't stand a chance.
Asian students only make up 20% of the year, yet they seem to be making up 80% of the failures.
This is supposed to be a university where you come to study. Doesn't matter what background you are, what religion you are, what race you are, and yet lecturers are failing you because of the colour of your skin. And I genuinely believe that if you worked hard, you would do well.
Personal racial abuse is hard to prove. It's usually one-to-one incidents, and it also jeopardises their confidentiality.
So I was president of the Asian Students' Society, and I raised it as an issue. I was seen as problematic. People were scared of being attached to me. So I had very close friends who would meet me secretly but couldn't be seen in public with me in case they were seen as the ones who were the whistleblowers. And that was heartbreaking because friendships broke down. And during that process, I became politicised.
As far as we're concerned, if the university had nothing to hide and wanted to exonerate their name, they would call forth an independent inquiry.
We started a campaign calling for an inquiry, calling for an investigation into those individuals, calling for the examination system to be changed, that no lecturer should know whether you're black or white, man or woman, gay or straight, know your name, it should be anonymous marking. But we eventually got that because of the campaign that we fought. The anonymous marking was introduced right across universities across the country, so it had an impact.
Amer's experience in driving change at the University of Glasgow led him to later accept the voluntary position of rector following a student vote.
I learned that justice is a right and not a privilege, and giving a voice to the voiceless.
Now, in his fight to change the law on Crown immunity in the prison service, Armour is pushing for the results of a fatal accident inquiry into the death of Katie Allen, the results of which should highlight any failings by the prison service.
It's gone on year after year after year. Every report that we have read, suicides every year, spiralling up, and it's heartbreaking because every time we see a death has occurred and it pops up on the website, me and Linda phone each other.
The Allens are not the only family to have lost a loved one as a result of suicide in prison. In 2018, 4 months after Katie's death, 16-year-old William Lindsay took his own life while in Pullman prison.
A joint fatal accident inquiry is to be held into the deaths of 2 young people who took their own lives while in custody at Polmont Young Offenders Institution.
Why does it take families 6 years of campaigning to get a decent outcome, if it is a decent outcome?
John Riley is William's half-brother. Christine was William's mother, and sadly she died some 3 years after William took his own life, so she never got to see justice. So John's carried on fighting for William.
William Lindsay had been remanded in custody due to a lack of beds in a secure unit.
William Lindsay, who was 16, died just days after being placed on remand.
Following the conclusion of the judge-led inquiry, Katie and William's families are meeting with Armour to prepare for the upcoming FAI publication.
FAIs don't allocate blame. People will say, oh, well, that's it, you got it. They go, no, it's not.
So it's not really an inquiry, it's just a, defend your own.
Yeah.
That's pretty horrible.
An FAI is to make recommendations. Unfortunately, within the FAI system, there is no sanction when things are not implemented.
For Armour, only by shedding light on the prison service's failings and making them accountable could death be prevented in the future.
What we found when we examined hundreds of fatal accident inquiries over a space of several years, 80%, I think it was the figure, of self-inflicted deaths occurred as a result of ligature points. Ligature is basically anything that a person can utilise to hang themselves, to take their own lives. Remove it. How much is it going to cost to ensure that somebody doesn't take their own lives?
With Katie, she used her dressing gown. It was a dressing gown I bought for her one Christmas, so you can imagine what I think. If I hadn't bought that dressing gown, if I hadn't given her it in Pullman, as her mum, that's all the thoughts I've had.
The findings of the fatal accident inquiry report are yet unknown. But if they prove that Katie and William's deaths could have been prevented and the prison service failed them, it will bolster Armour's justification for changing the law. Something that Armour believes should be achievable, given that not all prisons are subject to the same rules.
The ironic situation is that private prisons in Scotland, in England, Wales and Northern Ireland don't have Crown immunity, so they can be prosecuted. They can be prosecuted for breach of health and safety, they can face criminal prosecutions. Yet if you're a public prison, run by the Scottish Prison Service, you can't. Hi, how are you?
Fine.
All right, how are you? You did? Long time no see. You did, Jim?
Hi, nice to see you.
Hi, Al. You're going to sit today.
Armour is meeting with a family who he's represented for the last 3 years.
Alan Ingalls is the father of the late Callum Ingalls. Their son was in prison, was due to be released. During COVID, he became ill with COVID and spent some 12 days in the cell. He died a horrific death from COVID, and his family have always believed that the prison should have assisted Callum and called for a prosecution. of Caldwell Prison, as well as the Health Trust responsible for the medical care of prisoners.
The words of a grieving family. He died from COVID, alone in his cell, and we cannot wait years for answers.
Callum's circumstances were horrific, in a cell, begging for help.
Callum Ingalls died last October in Caldwell Prison. His family say in final text messages the 34-year-old spoke of how he begged for days for medical attention, but no one came.
Since his death, Callum's family have been campaigning to hold the prison to account, and today marks an important day.
We have pushed for prosecution to take place. Today we received notice that Crown Counsel has been instructed to pursue a prosecution against the prison and the Health Trust. It's an important moment. I'm going to tell the family that we've now reached that stage. And I think it will also beg the question in many minds, how is it that a private prison can be prosecuted? But in the case of Katie Allen, William Lindsay, many other prisoners who have died in public prisons where there's been huge question marks over the detention, that because it's a public prison, they have Crown immunity. Surely that can't be right. Surely that can't be right. Why shouldn't they face the same consequences as any other public institution?
Crown immunity only applies to public prisons because they are part of the state. And it leads to this very bizarre situation where you can have prison officers behaving in the same potentially criminal way in two different prisons, and one of them could be prosecuted and the other one couldn't.
The Crown Office, they've now received instructions from Senior Crown Counsel, and they've been directed to pursue criminal proceedings against the prison for Callum's death.
Thanks, Grandma.
That's great news.
Yes, Mum. Yeah, no, it's amazing.
So it's 3.5 years nearly since Callum died, and this prosecution needs to go ahead. And hopefully we get the outcome we're looking for.
You done injustice? Yeah. You haven't given up. It's heartbreaking watching Alan. It's heartbreaking watching Callum's mum, Jen, watching Callum's sister, Frances. We'll get out what the position is. Once it's live proceedings, then there's very limited what I can say publicly.
Okay.
What they've been through, to see it, they are a kind, loving family that did everything to try and support each other, to support Callum.
Again now.
I know. I know.
People often look at a prisoner and go, oh, just write him off. Oh, well, he died. He had a right to life. Oh, you haven't given up. And, you know, you've got it to this point.
I just miss him so much. What a sin. God.
He had a family who loved him. He had a future. And of course, they've kept his memory alive, and they fought for this because they want, like many other families, they want change to take place. They want to know answers of what happened and what changes can be brought about as a result of that, because that's a legacy.
Bye, Mother.
Witnessing the relief accountability brings to grieving families strengthens Amer's determination to secure justice for anyone whose death in prison may have been preventable. By pushing for the removal of Crown immunity, he seeks to make the entire system accountable.
Katie Allen would have been a constituent of mine, but for the fact that aged 21 she found herself after a youthful, stupid mistake in Pullman Young Offenders Institute, where she died from suicide. The families of those who've lost children in such circumstances are campaigning for Crown immunity to be removed from prisons across Britain so that there is proper accountability and so that more young lives are not lost. Would the Minister meet with those families to discuss that proposal?
Minister. I am very happy to meet with the families concerned and himself.
It's very encouraging that Blair has been able to start this process within Parliament, but really what needs to happen now is for the momentum to build up, to gain traction in order that the law can change, because it's a Westminster decision. So it makes it really, really important that we continue with the campaign to have Crown immunity lifted.
With Blair influencing MPs in Westminster, it's now up to Amar and his team to maintain momentum in Scotland. Today, the much-anticipated fatal accident inquiry report into Katie and William's deaths is expected, marking a key moment in the firm's fight.
I hope the judge delivers a robust report that pulls no punches and holds the prison service to account, because I genuinely believe this is our last chance. Right, 10 o'clock. Where is it? Katie and William died in 2018. We've waited so many years to get to this point, and there's a part of me that's terrified because I've made a promise to the families. Don't worry, we'll get there. Can you just keep checking the office emails? If anything comes in from the court, tell me straight away, because I've not had it in on my personal email, albeit it's just turned 10 o'clock, so, okay.
Thanks.
Oh, got it, 10:01. 419 pages.
My God. Recommendations, Amar?
I'm just literally skimming through those at speed just now.
What are they saying?
I mean, I'm happy with the fact he's done 419 pages. He's been pretty robust. Following findings are made. As regards Katie, Katie could reasonably have been accommodated in a cell without a rectangular metal toilet cubicle doorstop located at more than 1.7 metre above the floor level, which was readily capable of being used as a ligature anchor point without ingenuity or adaptation.
That's brilliant, Amar.
As regards William, William could reasonably not have been accommodated alone in a cell with a double bunk bed, which was readily capable of being used as a ligature anchor point without ingenuity or adaptation.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's pretty simple. How much is it going to cost them? It's not going to cost them millions to actually have something where you can hang your dressing gown or your towel on, but if somebody tries to hang their body weight on it, it's going to collapse. Happened last week, it happened again. Well, that's what's happening in our prisons without ingenuity or adaptation. And the words that struck me from the report was, it wouldn't have taken much ingenuity or modification. That's probably the most damning way a sheriff could say it, because a sheriff can't be insulting, he's not supposed to allocate blame, but when you read between the lines, he is damning in his judgment of the Scottish Prison Service. Katie's history of self-harm was not brought to the attention of the SPS staff, and in particular Katie's personal officers, to inform ongoing suicide risk assessment of Katie while she was in Portland.
The main thing for us, for the FAI, was we wanted to be believed. We had so many experts saying publicly that, you know, I'll all come out in the FAI, you know, and it was almost, the inference was almost, the truth will come out and it's not what the Allens are saying.
Death in Prison Learning Audit Review, DIPLA, conducted in relation to Katie's death, failed to consider or make recommendations in relation to ligature anchor points and the ligature which she had used to die by suicide. DIPLA, conducted in relation to William's death, failed to consider or make recommendations relating to the ligature, anchor point and the ligature used by him to suicide. There was a systemic failure. Why did they need to dive? No point in having pictures and paintings outside and flowers and saying unlocking potential as they have as you arrive within Parliament, but you can't even remove a ligature point that would save someone's life. It's got a huge number of recommendations.
Oh.
Huge.
Well, that's what we're hoping for, eh?
That's it. Recommendations are good.
The thing is, Amber, that it's fantastic, it sounds fantastic, but somebody else will die next week.
I know. But I said this is a stepping stone. It's what comes next now. In terms of the recommendations, there's so many recommendations. It hasn't happened before. But when you put that all to the side, you're looking at a mother and a father sitting there in tears. And that's hard. See what's happening.
Thanks, Mum.
Wouldn't happen without you guys.
Thank you.
I see the pain etched in Linda and Stuart's face. It never leaves them. From the moment they wake up, to making a cup of tea, for going out for a walk with the dog. Katie's there. It's huge. It's down to you.
No,
Down to you both.
It doesn't bring her
And
back.
Scott, I know it doesn't. But as I said at the start, even if it saves one life,
I know.
then it means other
But
families.
another 4 people have died because it's taken them so long. Sorry, I'm a wreck. Oh.
Now there's a media embargo in place, which gives Amer and his team 24 hours to review the report before holding a press conference.
We have to take the longest report ever issued in the history of fatal accident inquiries and digest that report into, what, 3 pages to make sense of it for the media and for the public? Hi, John, it's Amer here. I'm okay. Sorry, I was going to get back to you. Got the report in. Okay, so the report is a devastating indictment. It's basically everything we wanted. So thank you to your mum, thank you to you. And obviously Linda and Stuart. I mean, this wouldn't have happened without you. I mean, it is devastating for the prison service. I mean, it shows that, I mean, the main thing from that is that the deaths could have been prevented. And then, okay, all right, cheers. Thanks, John. Bye-bye, bye-bye. John's on page 84, all right?
With over 400 pages to review, Amer and the family work through the report, knowing that every detail is crucial for tomorrow's press conference.
There's a purpose of this press conference, and it's simply going, yes, we've got it, it's brutal, but we're taking it to the next stage, Crown immunity. We will utilise this as a batching ram to get ourselves through the door of number 10 and say, change the law. The Scottish Prison Service, as well as the Scottish Government, you should all hang your heads in shame. They are complicit in the deaths of Katie and William and so many others.
The fatal accident inquiry in front of you does not apportion blame to you.
What's happened is a complete failure. And what we're trying to do is to highlight that so no other young people die again.
They've got a duty of care, but where was that when they left a kid for 10 hours in a cell? But it is time now that the law has to change.
We've heard what the Sheriff's comments are, but obviously they're just recommendations. They aren't legally enforceable. What would you like to see happen as a result of that?
What we want is the lifting of Crown immunity by the UK government.
The loss of a child shatters the soul, but it also turns you into a force of nature.
Thank you.
Linda is tenacious. She's just not given up. Doesn't take no for an answer. We'll be fine. It's the families that actually inspire you to keep going. They held no hostages when the questions were asked. They didn't back down. Well, what can they say? Sorry? Or has it just come on?
They just done something. They just put something in.
Has that just come in?
Angela Constance, Cabinet Secretary for Justice for the Scottish Government, has just emailed Amar.
Just a statement from Angela Constance that we just received, so I wanted to inform you that I plan to give a statement to Parliament regarding the Scottish Government's response next Thursday, subject to parliamentary approval. In my statement, I will update Parliament on the measures taken since the deaths of Katie and William and set out the Government's commitment to make further improvements. Please contact my private office. Yours sincerely, Angela Constance. OK, thank you.
An invitation to the Scottish Parliament marks a pivotal moment in gaining momentum towards a UK-wide outcome.
An important moment that they will meet with the family, not just the Justice Minister, but the First Minister. We've already said in our statement, we won't accept the sympathy and the words of encouragement and say, oh, what a battle the family have fought, and paying tribute to their courage and their perseverance and their tenacity. Not interested in that. They want to know from Angela and from the First Minister, what are you going to do? We need to get the law changed. Are you going to take what the report says and deliver on it? Who are you going to back? SBS, Scottish Prison Service, or the families?
Inside Holyrood, Amar is using his time to engage with MSPs, hoping they'll support his argument in the debating chamber, which will keep pressure on the Scottish Government.
What do you think out of the FBI recommendations are the most important?
The biggest problem really is ligatures. If Angela comes back saying, oh, there's improvements in place and all the rest of it, going, no, we want timeline.
Where and when and how many.
Yeah.
And here's the highest risk. Let's start there. And everybody else make sure it's safe. And what's our timelines for delivery? Because if they're not quick, another person's going to die.
Legal aid, I think, is a case of that should be an immediate priority, because you have 80% of families do not have the right to automatic legal aid funding. And often those families just walk away because they can't afford it.
When William passed away, we didn't really get any information at all. What went wrong? What was the next step? Like, my mum got a phone call and then that was it.
There's Annis. Well, I'll leave you with Annis.
As Pauline heads to the debating chamber, Amar hopes to strengthen his fight for legal change by meeting the Scottish Labour leader who could connect him with the UK-wide Justice Secretary and ultimately the Prime Minister.
Crown immunity is one that we're going to really pile the pressure on you, because in England...
Can I take it that immunity exists UK-wide?
UK-wide. So it was on the Labour agenda under Tony Blair, Gordon Brown's government. It was actually part of the parliamentary agenda. It then fell off the agenda during that period some 20-odd years ago. So we want your assistance to get us access to the Justice Secretary and to Keir Starmer.
I'm happy to look at that and make sure there's proper dialogue with the Justice Department as well.
Yeah. So we'd like within the next few months to get a meeting in London, 10 families to come down, England, Wales, Scotland, and say, this is an example, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Happy to pick that up. I suppose the other question, I mean, how are all of you? Because this can't be easy.
We're exhausted. During all this, life still goes on. My father's got advanced dementia, our son's flat hunting, you know, you've still got all the stress of life going on, as well as trying to fight for justice.
First and foremost, I want to express my deepest condolences to the families of Katie Allen and William Lindsay. I hear and I fully understand the families' demand for action and agree we must and we will take action.
Our grieving periods went on that long that you become a bit numb to it. Like, you get a part where normality kicks back in again, and then like Thursday last week we got the Fate Winston inquiry and boom, you're back at day one again. But also you've got to go to school at 3 o'clock to get the kids, so you're juggling emotions.
Sheriff Collins stressed the need for greater recognition by SPS of the importance of ligature prevention, and I can confirm SPS will urgently and immediately review and revise its policy on items that can be used as ligatures.
We welcome the immediate review of ligatures across the prison estate. The SPS should have done this as soon as Katie and William died.
Will the Cabinet Secretary commit to legal aid support for all families in the first 24 hours?
We will change the legal aid system to make legal aid free and non-means tested in relation to deaths in custody fatal accident inquiries.
I want to pay tribute to the families of Katie Allen and William Lindsay and include also the late Christine Lindsay, William's mother. Without these families, there would have been no campaign, there would have been no report from Sheriff Collins, and no legacy and no hope that we see today.
Finally, while not in my gift to introduce, I will continue to pursue the lifting of Crown immunity with the UK Government. I believe that this should change in line with other public bodies.
On the question of Crown immunity, we met with Anas Sarwar, and we are grateful for his support in seeking that the families can meet with the Prime Minister Keir Starmer to ask him to finally lift Crown immunity for prosecutions for all prisons in the United Kingdom.
Stop this. It needs to change. We cannot be in that Parliament in a year's time going, happened again, happened again. It needs to stop. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Right, that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
Next time.
Fighting the system, that was the hardest years of our lives. He was asked, why have you come to the UK? And he wrote to die in peace.
These are sort of cases which are controversial. We worked night and day to fight against an establishment that has a whole army of lawyers.
In the heart of Glasgow, one of Scotland's leading firms in human rights law has built a reputation fighting on the front line of injustice.
So I'm going to lose everything.
Now they've set their sights on an even bigger mission, to hold the system to account.
They hope that you'd give up.
I haven't, and I won't.
Scrutinising institutions.
Laws can't be changed overnight.
And changing the game.
I'd like to take a break.
Of course, yeah.
If that's okay.
There is a pecking order that's enforced through intimidation, bullying and violence.
Scotland's legal system is under pressure like never before.
It's almost like a Line of Duty episode.
The firm is at the centre of some of the biggest issues facing the nation.
We need justice.
Our laws are what define us, and where the battle lines are drawn will impact us all.
The family do not want tea and sympathy. They demand a public inquiry.
But it's time now that the law has to change.
Got a lot of work to do. We're dealing with human beings. It doesn't matter what colour they are, what background, what religion, what country they come from. Around about 2 decades ago, I started up my own firm, and the principle was to have a law firm in Scotland that fought for justice, that fought for equality, that fought for the rights of the vulnerable that nobody will speak up for.
In June 2024, over 5,500 people had an active asylum application in Scotland and were receiving financial and accommodation support from the Home Office.
We have become the firm that people come to.
For the firm's Immigration and Asylum Department, demand for legal assistance is growing.
It's in my diary just now, but I think it's fine. I'm sure she said she was free.
In the last year, the immigration team have handled over 200 cases.
There are unfortunately many myths that circulate around immigration and particularly around asylum. I think people believe most refugees want the UK to be their home, when in 2021 the UK was home to approximately 1% of the world's refugees. With asylum claims, no two cases are ever the same because it's very dependent on the country the person's from. So you don't know exactly what you're going to be dealing with until the client's in front of you. How are you feeling now?
A little anxious still because of where we are.
Yeah, of course. Rose is an asylum seeker from Namibia, and she has been my client since she arrived in the UK. She came to the UK to claim asylum based on her sexuality and based on her being a victim of domestic violence. Her asylum claim was refused, and we are appealing, and we are waiting for the tribunal to set a hearing date.
Denise O'Can needs to prepare her for the arguments she'll be faced with in court.
The Home Office refused Rose's claim because they said that she has a sufficiency of protection available to her in Namibia. What they have said is that you would be able to internally relocate to escape persecution. They're saying that you could freely live as a gay woman in somewhere else in Namibia.
No. People from the community are being killed. Last year, people were being decapitated. People are being raped. Like conversion therapy, churches thinking that they can wash, humiliate, beat the sexuality out of you.
While Namibia's High Court decriminalised some same-sex relations laws in 2024, Rose doesn't believe the situation has changed enough for her to safely return.
It's not like here free. Since I came to Scotland, I didn't hide who I am. I found a girlfriend. We walk around holding hands. Just taken as somebody who is wanting to love who you want to love and be with who you want to be with. I'm here for peace of mind. I'm here to breathe freely, to walk freely, to say what I want to say freely, to hold someone's hand freely, to love freely.
Yeah. We've obtained a report from an expert on Namibia to specifically comment on her circumstances, and I hope that this is enough to show that she is at genuine fear of persecution from her home country. The country expert report is very, very supportive of your case and references similar cases to people like you that have obviously been killed because of their sexuality. There's something called the Electronic Immigration Network, and that's where we find our experts. So it's not that every time we instruct an expert, they say things that are supportive for our client, but obviously this expert did say really supportive things for you.
As well as Rose's sexuality, her fear of persecution should she return to Namibia is also based on her experience of domestic violence.
We provided screenshots of conversations that took place between you and your ex-partner, numerous threats and violence used towards you.
I've suffered at the hand of this man. He has never given me an apology. It just makes me feel like they are not seeing me, to the point that even when I tell my story, I'm not crying. I'm so angry, I've done the crime.
Rose is amazing. She's like the most bright and bubbly person to be around, or at least she was when I first met her. But I have to say, the last few meetings I've had with her, she has been really worn down.
I came in here in your office and I've gave everything. So I'm like, what else do they want from me? I don't have no other thing to give. That's the point where I am right now, Denise. I won't lie to you.
Navigating the asylum system is complex, and today Amar has an appointment with a fellow campaigner who knows just how difficult the process can be.
Hi, Rosa. How are you? Okay.
It's really nice to come to your new office.
So what are you doing?
I'm just doing my job as a counsellor. I was working for an MP, just
Doing a bit of campaigning, just helping migrants with their visas.
Feels like I've known Rosa for forever. She's from the Kurdish community that have suffered a great deal. And she was the first refugee to become a councillor in Scotland. We've always been in contact, always on the same side, fighting for justice, fighting for human rights, fighting for the rights of asylum seekers.
I was just thinking, when was the last time I saw you? I think I was in Cameo Street.
There's a picture there.
Well, I think it was 2021 actually it was.
I'm obviously much older than Rosa, but we always seem to have been on the same side. We have a shared passion for change, for justice, activism. When I arrived at Cameo Street, when two men were being forcibly deported, people from the community called me and said, will you come down to help? And we were successful in having the two men released. The person I saw right in the crowd with the megaphone who handed it to me was Rosa Sally.
I think that's what is wonderful about Glasgow itself,
Yeah.
that is so diverse. And I think it wouldn't happen without advocating for, minority communities.
A lot of work continues to be done, but I don't think we can get complacent. Ideas that were normally on the margins of fascism are now mainstream ideas.
Yeah.
Almost.
I think that's what is scary right now in politics, is the right wing rising.
It feels like right across Europe, and especially in this country, in the United States, we see that happening. In my view, asylum seekers, refugees, are the #1 target. Very important that people like Rosa are there, that are prominent. People can point to them and say, well, you're a part of the community.
Every asylum seeker have individual stories, being prosecuted, where they running away from something very dangerous.
During Saddam Hussein's regime, the Kurdish community in Iraq were forced into exile or displaced within the country. Many of those affected, including Rosa and her family, sought asylum in the UK.
The Kurdish people faced persecution, genocide, where Saddam Hussein chemically gassed the Kurds, basically ethnically cleansed for who they are. And at that time, my dad and my mom were politically involved, fighting for freedom and democracy against the Saddam Hussein regime. For my dad to decide to leave my home country, I think that was a difficult position that he was in. His children were not safe. He's seen horrific scenes of his brothers and father being executed, and he had to bury them. So it's very, very difficult to think about what's happened to your family. I'd like to take a break.
Of course, yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah, completely.
As a child, I left my home country and then had to settle in a new country in Scotland. That was a hard journey for me. My father felt discriminated against. Imagine you cannot work in this country. You are getting vouchers for your clothing items, for your food, for everything. That was our way of life at that time for that 8-9 years. And then fighting the system and trying to develop as a person. I think that was the hardest years of our lives. I feel like that anger was built within me as a campaigner, as a child. All those barriers and challenges have made me a fighter, have made me to fight the system, have made me to be a troublemaker.
Have you seen any of the rest of the Glasgow girls?
I have. I actually saw them over the weekend. Whenever I look back to how the Glasgow girls became the Glasgow girls, we initially wanted to save our friend.
At dawn on September the 13th, 2005, immigration officials entered the family home of Rosa's school friend Agnesa, who'd been living in Scotland for 5 years. Her family were trying to secure refugee status, having fled their homeland of Kosovo, where their lives were in danger due to their Roma ethnicity.
How can you do that to children? What's their fault? You know, where's the humanity? You know, we can be safe to have a safe life to go to school.
It was really, really stressful when you see your fellow peoples have been detained and deported. We were like, it's going to happen to us as well.
What we do is, at vast expense, we deport people who've overstayed their visas or who have failed their asylum claims, rather than saying, might there be something else we could do without having to pay the unbelievable costs of detention and return for people who do not have a criminal record, because seeking asylum is not a criminal activity.
Agnesa's friends, including 15-year-old Rosa, began a publicity campaign to remove the family from Jarl's Wood Detention Centre in England, where they were being held.
I don't think at the time we expected any support or any national attention. There was no social media at that time. We were faxing journalists, we were faxing Scottish government.
My belief has always been that campaigns, it starts in the classroom. A handful of students who come together and say, we want to make change. They have that spark of resistance, that belief. Rosa was one of those individuals who pulled her friends in together and said, we can do this.
Pupils at the school in Glasgow are making a show of solidarity with a family who were turned down for asylum.
Our campaign went all the way to the Scottish government, to the UK government.
It set a template for how you can win.
The Home Office rescinded the decision to deport Agnesa and her family.
The Glasgow Girls became the Glasgow Girls. You know, being one of the Glasgow Girls, being a campaigner for higher education, being vocal on rights to work for asylum seekers, being vocal, influencing politicians on asylum rights and welcoming refugees. I've been always in solidarity, and you know, that sacrifice takes a lot of energy out of you. But it keeps you going because you know you're making a difference for people.
That template has been replicated up and down the country of community activism, community resistance, of people coming together and saying, that's my neighbour, that's my friend, they're not the enemy.
We saved our friend. And Agnesa went to college, and now she's working in the social care sector, helping our elderly people.
The UK faces significant staff shortages in our health and care system. Those waiting lengthy periods for a decision on an asylum claim, like Denise's client Rose, can boost the workforce.
What else can we provide here? That brings me on to speak about your work.
I take care of 2 adults living with autism and have additional support needs.
Challenging job.
Yes.
Rose currently cares for 2 men in their 30s that have advanced autism and learning disabilities. She's been granted permission to work by the Home Office because she was waiting for over 1 year for her asylum claim to be decided, and that's the criteria for applying for permission to work for an asylum seeker. However, they can only work in certain jobs on the immigration salary list, so they have to make sure that they're able and qualified to do one of the jobs on that list.
I'm settling in quite well, according to my manager. It was very challenging in the beginning, but I think after I did some placement at a center for the deaf, I was very intrigued about how to work with people that are nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because someone that can talk and tell you what they want, but it's understanding the silence that is more challenging. Yeah, so It's a good job.
The work that Rose does is so important, and it's a job that not everyone is able to do because it's so challenging, and she does it with such pride. And there's often asylum seekers that work as care workers, for example, for elderly people, and these are jobs that there's a shortage of. That's why they're allowed to do these jobs.
I want to be a social worker at the end of the day. It gives me joy to go and look after those guys because every day is a learning day for me when I'm there. They don't say much, they don't talk at all, but they teach you something.
They would obviously be impacted if you were to stop working for them as well.
Yes, yes, because they are getting used to me now. And the relationship is sort of building. They are starting to trust me more, especially when we go out. I even find myself being at home and thinking, oh, what are they doing?
Oh, that's nice. I think it's really important to include that in the appeal because it's an additional reason for her to be able to stay in the UK. Okay, is there anything you want to ask me, or just how long?
Everybody keeps asking me, when are you going to court? When are you going to court? But the wait is also causing me serious anxiety. So people are just treading carefully around me. I feel like I'm a buzzkill sometimes. I'm a joy killer.
No, it's not fair. You bring joy, you definitely don't kill joy. I mean, to answer your question, unfortunately, I do not know how long. And I know that must be really frustrating to hear, but the case is in the stage of being listed at the moment. I am hopeful with Rose's case. Of course, it's impossible to know the outcome until you receive it, but we've definitely done everything that we can to prepare her appeal in the best possible way.
The firm's commitment to fighting for the underdog doesn't end when asylum status is granted. In another legal battle, Amr and his team are reaching the climax of a long-running death in custody case. In 1995, 12-year-old Sheku Bayo arrived in the UK as an unaccompanied child, fleeing civil war in Sierra Leone. After 5 years, he moved to Scotland, but in 2015, his life ended tragically.
Police, what's the address of your emergency? Hello, there's a man with a knife, a black man on Hayfield Road in Kirkcaldy.
Sheku Bayo had been visiting a friend's house, but began acting out of character. He was seen on the streets in possession of a knife and reported to the police. Officers arrived and he was restrained. He lost consciousness soon after and was later pronounced dead in hospital. The day after Sheku's death, initially working for free, Amr began what would become a decade-long fight to get answers for the Bayo family. A fight Amr is still having today.
Families like this, whose loved one has died in police custody, have no right to a lawyer, which meant then we took it on pro bono. We worked night and day to fight against an establishment that has a whole army of lawyers.
Police, what's the address of your emergency?
There's a black man, and he's got about a 9-inch knife in his hand.
First two officers to arrive on the scene found Sheku Bayo walking towards him. Sheku was unarmed. He had a knife which must have been dropped some distance away from where he was brought to the ground. And he was under the influence of drugs, was needing help.
To uncover the truth of what happened that day, Amr pushed for a public inquiry, and in 2019, that inquiry was announced. A key part of the investigation was to determine whether race was a factor in Sheku's death. The inquiry questioned the police involved in the incident.
So you didn't think there was time to ask him any questions like, are you okay, or anything like that?
It's no situation for asking questions like that. The man was out of control. The man was drugged up. The man had a big knife.
At that moment, had you seen a knife in the possession of Mr. Bayou?
But I couldn't assume there wasn't one because of the number of calls. He could have had it concealed at any point on his person.
So you hadn't seen one? You're shaking your head.
During the altercation, Sheku allegedly went on to assault one of the female officers.
I just remember feeling what I've always described it as this almighty blow to the back of my head.
She's tried to push herself up, but then he stamped on her back.
Well, I'll get you to demonstrate the force, please.
I thought he killed her.
This claim was disputed by an eyewitness at the time.
If PC Short had complained of pain in a particular area of her body, including her back, is that something that you would have noted?
It is. That was the purpose of my being there, to document the injuries, so yes.
There's no mention of back there.
This allegation was stated as one of the reasons for the force which followed.
He was CS sprayed, and 5 to 6 officers then detained and restrained him. He has up to 6 officers on top of him. In less than a few minutes, he lost consciousness, and he was then taken to hospital, still handcuffed, and was pronounced dead.
Do you remember if you were taught anything about unconscious bias?
What's unconscious bias?
Were you asked any questions about maybe making assumptions about people because of the colour of their skin? You're not even really aware of those assumptions, and you're treating people in a certain way, just unconsciously?
No.
Were you asked about that?
No, not at all.
Do you remember being asked to identify any biases that you yourself have?
Can't remember anything about any of the training.
No. Turning on to page 10, you see that's what we're wondering now because the ISIS attack and that on a female on Friday. Why did you connect an ISIS attack with the incident at Hayfield Road?
It just may have been an ISIS attack because of the suggestion that a female officer has been getting targeted for it, and it may well have been ISIS.
The only thing you could think of was that there was this connection being made between the fact that Mr. Bayou was a black male and possible terrorist attacks.
Yes.
Also, as part of the inquiry, Sir Ian Livingston was questioned. He was Chief of Police at the time of the incident.
Can we look at your inquiry statement again, please? You say at 10, as Chief Constable and leader of the organisation, it was my decision to state that the Police Service of Scotland was institutionally discriminatory and institutionally racist. And does that remain your position?
Yes, that's correct.
Amar believes the police officers involved should have been prosecuted and wants the public inquiry to expand its remit to investigate why this didn't happen. That expansion of the inquiry's terms of reference is something that only the Deputy First Minister can change.
After Sheku Bayou died in May 2015, his family waited some 2 years for the PERC to do its job. It then waited another 2 years for the Crown to do its job. Now they are waiting for the Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes, to fulfil the purpose of the Sheku Bayou inquiry by extending the terms of reference to include the prosecutorial decision-making process by the Crown. To be blunt, the job of the inquiry is not fulfilled without the terms of reference being extended.
Everybody have said to you is a case of, oh, but you've got a public inquiry. Are you not happy with that? And my line always in every public meeting we've done is, if it was your son, would you be happy with that? Because a year or 2 years, 3 years down the line, there'll be another Sheku Bayou.
In the Immigration and Asylum Department, Denise is embarking on yet another complex case.
You can't be a lawyer in this country and say you want to fight for justice if you don't actually care about the humanity that has been devastated in countries around the world, and we've seen too much of it.
Mohammed and Mohammed are clients of mine. A relative of theirs phoned me who's already based in the UK, and he said that he had his father and his nephew who had arrived from Palestine and that they needed to claim asylum. The purpose of today's meeting is to continue taking details from you for your statement, which is going to be provided to the Home Office before your asylum interview. Before we do that, is there anything that you need help with or anything you want to ask me?
أنا بشكرك كثير والله كثير تعبتي معنا وشكرا لك كثير يعني.
Oh, no problem. You so far have told me a lot about the background of your life in Palestine and the difficulties that you faced. Asylum seekers are not required to provide a statement to the Home Office ahead of their interview, but it's always beneficial to do that because it allows the interviewing officer to have an idea of their claim before they're interviewed, which is when they're asked really detailed questions on their claim.
The asylum process is complicated and there are many, many, many steps involved. If they're lucky, they'll have legal representation, they'll submit their claim, and then they're called to an asylum interview to determine whether or not people have met that threshold for having a well-founded fear of persecution.
Mohammed and Mohammed fled Palestine due to the conflict between Israel and Palestine. It's incredibly difficult to imagine how this would feel. They've left their home, their family, just to try to seek safety. They had been issued Jordanian passports, which they used to apply to come to the UK, and this visa route is no longer available, so they were very lucky to get here when they did.
وأي شخص بده يطلع من فلسطين ما بيقدر يسافر على دول تانية إلا يعدي من الأردن.
Okay, and why did your other family members not come in the same way that you did?
كل واحد عنده 6 7 منين بده يطلع منين بده يجي بده شو بده يطلع يسوي شو.
I've been alongside a number of people who've gone through asylum interviews. They're all different and they are extraordinary affairs. And what I think is a really strong approach is an approach that gives people the right to tell their story in time, the right to be ordinary.
يعني أنا لما جينا على هون بصراحة وبصدق وبأمانة يعني ما عشمناش نلاقي الشعب حلو، بلاد حلوة، بلاد أمان. كثير يابا افرقت من الأرض للسماء، والله العظيم هي يميني بالله والله الفرق من الأرض للسماء. أنا اللي شفته هون أنا ما شفتوش في حياتي ما شفته. يعني اللي مرت أنا قبل مدة يعني فأخذني على الدكتور. يعني أنا بحالي أنا اختيار وعمري 66 سنة اللي شفته عمري ما شفته. يعني بقول له بدي اروح على الحمام مسكني من ايدي وصلني للمرحاض. انا برجيكي يعني ما قدرتش اتحمل دكتور انا ياخذني يعني يمسكني يتعبني يجعطس علي يمس راسي يزعل شيء وهذا واجبي وهذا يعني انا صراحة ضايقت كثير دكتور يجي يوصلك يعني شيء غريب والله شيء غريب.
Take your time. I know it's very difficult to talk about these things, Mohammed. It must be incredibly difficult for them to tell me their life story. You know, they've only quite recently met me and they have to put a lot of trust in me to handle their case and also to listen to such intricate details about the difficulties that they've faced. Do you want to take a break?
لا مش مشكلة. دريانين احنا دريانين على السيارة.
Mohammed lost his wife to cancer and he explained that she died in his arms due to a lack of care. I know that that had a real impact into the way that he was feeling, because he was asked, why have you come to the UK? And he wrote, to die in peace. It's just heartbreaking to think that someone has to leave their family, their life, their home to die in peace.
وأنا والله مبسوط يعني أنا أحكي لك بصدق وبأمانة أنا إلي عايش شهرين بالضبط.
It's impossible for it not to affect you. There's certain days when you'll have meetings like that, but I left feeling quite positive because he is now in a place where he feels safe and respected. So I think that's how I learned to process the information that he shared with me. At our next appointment, I will read your statement back to you. And once we have your statement and all your supporting documents together, we'll send them to the Home Office and we will tell them that you're ready to be interviewed. Do you have any questions? Good. Thank you so much then. I'll be in touch shortly about another appointment, okay? Okay, thank you. Take care.
For Mohammed and Mohammed, their asylum claim could be the beginning of a long and uncertain road.
These families have suffered tragic circumstances, and yet they keep going, they keep fighting. Nothing is impossible for them, and I say to the staff, if they can do it, then we can do it too.
I'll get that for you. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Thanks.
We are probably one of a very, very small handful of firms that do this sort of work. It comes from personal experience and it comes from the direction that we've chosen to take the firm in.
Back on the Sheku Bio inquiry, Amr is gearing up for a career first. With race at the heart of the inquiry's remit, the judge has asked him to give personal evidence on the struggles he has faced as a person of colour, representing people of colour.
I was surprised when I was asked. I didn't particularly want to do it, but it's not unique. Imran Khan was called to give evidence in the Stephen Lawrence public inquiry. Lawyers have been asked to give evidence in other public inquiries because, of course, I have a memory of how the family were treated and what happened during the time of the case. And of course, there was lots of personal interactions that took place between myself and chief constables and Lord Advocates, which others wouldn't know about.
Amr hopes that his evidence will highlight the prejudice that he's experienced over the years.
There's the potential for it to challenge the most powerful institutions in this country, the Crown Office, the prosecution system, the police.
The hearing will likely delve into territory which will put Amr at his most vulnerable. In situations like this, Amr leans on his long-standing friend and confidant, Imran Khan.
I met Imran because of his work acting for the family of Stephen Lawrence.
Stephen Lawrence was stabbed to death by a gang of white youths in southeast London in 1993.
This judicial inquiry follows criticism of the police handling of the case.
And I reached out to Imran. I was, of course, in awe of Imran.
Imran Khan has built his reputation in cases taking on the state and standing up for human rights. Cases which can take decades to fight.
Imran was like a mentor to me.
Today, with such a pivotal moment in Amr's case impending, he's meeting with Imran to seek his support.
These are sort of cases which are controversial. You get abused. I got racially abused, I got threatened. We both had black hair when we first met.
You didn't have the beard. You were young, really young then.
There's not a lot of lawyers I could look around the country and go, they've been through exactly what I've been through. They have suffered the attacks, they have suffered the abuse. He's been through it, just as I have.
Are you still as angry is probably the wrong word? Are you still as motivated as you were back then?
I think the anger is most definitely there, but the anger is portrayed differently because I've realised probably now, if you're shouting, then it just allows people to go, okay, I'm going to switch off. Whereas if I can say it in a way that's calm, then much more likely to connect. So I've realised that. I think that's probably youth.
Yeah. I see us on a parallel journey. The experiences we've had have been very similar. I was very conscious when doing Lawrence and other cases is that you had to be better than your colleagues, you had to be better than everybody else, and you had to mind your P's and Q's. If you're out there in the public eye and you make a mistake, you are representative of every single Asian. You're all bad. If you're successful, it's because you're ticking a box. And so you can never win. And it's so important that people like you are around that represent the community, because without you, there wouldn't be the accountability, the transparency, the opening up of miscarriages. And for me, every time it's a bad day, just being there and doing the work that you do means you've changed something. And that, I think, is what allows me to sleep at night. And I see that in you. Well, and you do it much better than me. You carry it much better than me. You're far more articulate in the way that you do it. I'm incredibly proud of what you've done. And if I've played a part in that, then I'll take all the credit, Amr. I'll take it all.
You played a huge part. I am so conscious of the fact that so many Black and Asian lawyers choose not to go down the path we do because it's so tough.
There's a role for us in the legal profession. We are needed in that profession. The reason you have people complaining about you, if that's what happens, take that as a badge of honor, because it means you're doing the right thing. You're causing difficulties for people, particularly the state.
It's the day of Amr's hearing in the Sheku Bayou inquiry, where he'll give his personal statement.
That evidence will not just be about the evidence of the role I played for the family, but also it will go right back to 1991, the night that I had my teeth smashed in by the police, and the subsequent train of events which led to me becoming a lawyer and the various cases I've handled over the years, being a person of colour, acting for the family that were people of colour.
Justice for Sheku Bayou. We need justice for everyone in this country.
I'm hoping as a result of this inquiry that there really is a legacy of Sheku Bayou.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has supported this family over the last 9 years. The family want justice, and there has been no peace and no justice over 9 years.
You have, of course, represented families of a number of individuals who have lost their lives in circumstances where race was or may have been a factor. I'd like to ask what impact your experience has had on you personally.
From the moment I became a lawyer, I felt I was under attack. If lawyers sat there with white lawyers and fighting for a black family, they would be feted as human rights campaigners. But someone like me constantly told you have an ulterior motive. And I'm going, it's not an ulterior motive. I'm doing my job to the best of my ability. You are attacked, you are abused. I have had death threats over the years. That's a huge burden that I have on my shoulders, and I have never, ever been able to publicly say that. So that's the impact of these cases. The best piece of advice ever given to me was by Imran Khan. He said, be prepared. They will come for you. The institutions will attack you, and you must never respond, because you've got to continue to say, it's not about me, it's about the family. It's not about me, it's about family. And I've done that. And I have to say, what makes me go on? It's the families I represent that inspire me every single day. That even when you don't want to get up, when you have your darkest moments, you go, you've got to keep going, because they keep going, so you keep going. It was difficult. And it was very emotional because it was personal. If I look over at my mum, I'll burst into tears. And also for the family.